I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episodes 5 and 6 of the Daredevil Born Again series. So if you haven't watched those episodes yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to DisneyPlus, check out both of those episodes, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
All right, joining with me to break down episode 5 and 6 of the Daredevil Born Again series, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Mine! That was my favorite line delivery of all the episodes. Was just yelling, mine! Like a child.
Yeah, honestly, that's exactly what I was going to say. You know, really, Kingpin is just boiled down to a giant man-child.
Yeah, he just looked like a giant baby.
Just like imagine him as a giant baby, just like throwing around stuffed animals and toys and stuff.
Yeah, I was like my favorite. Like it's such a great delivery from him, but I'm just like, you little baby.
It doesn't help that it's like super cleanly bald head, like shaved bald type of thing. So it's definitely a baby.
It's just the Gerber baby as a villain. It's crazy.
Anyway, there is so much like to go over in these two episodes and stuff to unpack. But I have to start with two of the biggest things. First is we officially got Matt basically saying the thing. He almost said it. It was Kamal's dad that actually, asked, what kind of lawyer are you? And he goes, really good one. But we got it. We almost got the thing. I pointed at the screen.
Back.
Yeah, we got the thing. That's the first one. That's just a warm-up. This is a little taste of the fun of episode 5. But we also got officially confirmation, and this is a full circle moment because I don't know, a lot of people that are maybe just new and kind of just started following us when we started doing that recap show, but this is kind of that recap show is kind of a spin-off from the original variety show that we usually actually did live, and it's called Poppin' Off, which it's still here. It exists on YouTube where you're watching this right now, but the show actually originally started, we were talking about toys and Funko Pops.
Yeah.
So this is full circle moment in episode 5. It's officially canon. Funkos exist in the MCU.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the first one we see is Miss Marvel, which is awesome. And so in character for not only, Kamala, but Kamala's dad to have a Funko of his, his daughter's superhero alter ego.
Oh yeah, he's her biggest fan, and it makes sense too. So that's what's so great about them. Yeah,
it's such a in universe like thing for him to have on a work desk and stuff like that. So I just thought it fit perfect. It wasn't like shoehorned in there to sell more Funko Pops or anything like that. It was just very like it definitely made sense. You're like, yeah, he would definitely have that on his work desk. Like, but I thought that was awesome. Definitely wanted to point that out as soon as it happened. Both times I was pointing at the TV screen, going, can't believe they did a thing. But Rico, what were some instant reactions for episode 5?
Yeah, this was our nice little like kind of bottle episode. That was like our little break in between, after the great ending that we had last week with the reveal of the pasta was going, Kingpin going back to his old ways, and of course Matt going up and going back into his old ways as well. And then now like it's the classic kind of like mid-season formula that they do where they go like, all right, here's your little buffer after that cool episode, and then we can go right back into our story. But I like that because it's one of the things I love about reading comics too, is you get these nice little like one-shot issues, which in this case is just literally like Matt going to the bank to get something done for his normal job, and then he ends up, just ordering a bank robbery in the process. Right. And it makes a great use of his powers and stuff like that. Like, especially after like we've got this whole thing at the end of last episode where he's like kind of accepting where he's going to go back to that side of him too. This is kind of like a cool way of doing that without giving us the suit that we get later on in the next episode, right? So that's really cool. So it kind of gives us like the normal side. So yeah, I do love that. But also, I just love the interactions again with Matt and characters that just existed in the normal MCU before this too. This in this case being Yusuf Khan, Kamala's dad, which is just a great way to kind of like bring him into this kind of a show. Like when I saw him and I'm like, oh, cool. Like I forgot that like he does that for a job and it's actually like makes sense for him to be there. And it's like a great use of just kind of being there and also making this connection between these two characters, Matt and Kamala, really. That is that also just makes sense too, because at the end of the day, Matt likes to look out for the little guy as well. So like when you start making that connection too, it's just kind of cool to think of what if. So I like to get into that a little bit later too. But yeah, again, just watching the way those two interact with each other the entire episode too, and watching them work together, like yeah, that would totally make sense that you would read this the comic. Like Matt working with like the sidekick of another hero just makes a lot of sense. Or in this case, being the hero's father. But yeah, it was just a really fun dynamic to watch, and it was like a nice little like feel good ending too at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we got some teases for other stuff that I guess we could talk about in predictions and stuff like that. Just throwaway lines here and there, but actually could potentially be teases for other things in the MCU moving forward.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, you want to get to some big takeaways for episode 5?
Yeah.
Like you have a choice. Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I'm gonna kick off big takeaways for episode 5. So I know we're both going to be talking about some of the events during the bank robbery and that entire episode. The thing I loved about this episode, or one of the instances that I loved about this episode, because there was a lot of things I liked about this episode, but the silent fight between Matt and one of the bank robbers was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like where you see the shotgun's about to fall and he just like happens to catch it the
backwards
last
like grab. Yeah.
Oh
Crazy,
man, that was so cool. And also just kind of a way to add, like I'm always mentioning, the slow burn and the build of tension throughout the series and throughout episodes in general and stuff like that. But that, knowing that if that makes noise, just added that extra level of tension in that particular fight scene, like everything that just was the icing on the cake for that that fight whatsoever. So that's 100% my takeaway for episode 5, because I just thought that fight was awesome, and the fact that it was all silent or as quiet as possible, I thought was perfect. Now, I do have to say, honorable mention is when we get Matt impersonating one of the robbers.
I needed the bank manager to be sufficiently motivated to open the vault. He is now.
When he's down in the vault with Mama's dad, I thought that was also very good.
To break out a little Irish accent.
Right. Yeah. I thought that was also very good. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways for episode 5?
Yeah, that's one of the things I really do like about this episode too. Like I would set in this kind of St. Patrick's Day time zone or time frame here, and it also starts to play into Matt's actual Irish heritage too, and like the way that he kind of uses that. At one point, there's a great interaction between him and Devlin early on in the episode where he's like, "Oh, you're an Irishman, and you're an orphan too. Like, what do you have? A Charles Dickens novel, or something like that."
Right.
And I was like, that was really funny. It's like, because when you think kind of break down like the little characteristics of Matt, it does kind of play out kind of that in that kind of way too. So it's really funny. But I do like the way that they kind of they kind of emphasize him kind of leaning more back into his faith too. Because I think it's this episode that starts off with him praying with Foggy's eulogy card in his hand too. So he's been going back into his faith a little bit to kind of help center him, I think, back into that zone when he kind of lets the devil out, as he says. But I like that moment too, where he breaks out the Irish accent a little bit and kind of plays into that, and it completely fools Devlin during that whole moment too. So that was really great. But yeah, speaking of Devlin too, I actually kind of liked his character throughout this episode. I particularly liked the scenes between him and I think it's Detective Kim or the
hostage negotiator.
The hostage negotiator too. Especially the scene where he's like, "Tell me a joke," and make me laugh too. I thought that joke is actually really funny. So yeah, I just like that little back and forth dynamic too. But then ultimately it leads to this moment where him and Matt go one-on-one, and after Matt gets one of the guys' masks, and it's like the first instance of Matt really putting the mask back on too with the red.
Of course, he picked the red one.
The red one, of course. Yeah, of course it was red. So and of course, but man, they have a great little one-on-one fight until basically dude, Matt freaking smashes the shit out of Devin's leg too. I was like, that's one of the more like brutal, like violent scenes I've seen in any kind of MCU project today too. But and the Netflix show has some pretty gnarly stuff in it as well. But that's on par with some of the stuff they did back then too. So yeah, that was a pretty nasty moment, and just kind of the way that he kind of goes back and like going a normal day at the end too, and they're like, "Are you okay? Like you're like he's like, oh, we're good. We're just gonna go ahead and do that." So yeah, again, just any kind of action that we get with Matt doing his stuff is just awesome, and the fight choreography just continues to be amazing, and we'll keep talking about it too. So it's gonna
absolutely, I am right there with you. Every fight scene has been incredible so far.
Yeah, so well thought out.
Yeah, and so fast. Like everything happens so fast. But in a good way. It's not like, oh, that looked really computerized, so let's speed it up really quick. It's just that quick.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So it's been really cool. But you want to get to some big not big instant reactions for episode 6.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that instead. I just have to kick this right off. Damn, Muse is creepy. Like,
such a cool
I learned a little bit about Muse, the comic Muse and the character and stuff like that. And I know we're not exactly, on par with him.
I think he's like an Inhuman in the comics or something like
that.
Right.
He definitely has abilities and stuff like that it seems like they're shying away from.
Yeah, a little more grounded.
Right. But yeah, absolutely creepy. Just him in general. Especially when he's painting, I think it's episode 6 where he's painting the mural and like those 2 girls walk up to him and go, Muse? And it's like, they're fucked right away. Just by like
the first thought was like, you jumped 2 girls and like you didn't make any noise and no one knows that too. And I'm like, he works quick.
Such a creepy enemy to have. And not only that, but in this episode, there's much more we're going to talk about him in general, but like we get where he's actually his hideout is and everything, just even adds to the creepiness. Just chilling underground, like just he's nightmare fuel.
Absolutely.
What are some of your instant reactions for episode 6?
Yeah, I think it's really cool how like the second half of the season is going to seemingly focus on like these kind of 2 paths leading up, trying to go after Muse in some form. And the way they set him up, just kind of how he's a nuisance to both Matt and to Fisk is just really great too. So yeah, and I like the way they put an emphasis on all the different murals that he's done throughout town too. And I think like the guy who was supposed to who was trying to wash out the one mural and then ends up reporting to Fisk what it wasn't he the guy that was a hostage at the bank? He looked really familiar, and I was like, "Isn't that the same guy that was just chatting up with Matt at the bank at the end?" Like, no, he's one of us, or what was it? I think that I had a feeling that was the same guy.
He definitely looked familiar. You might be right. We might have to go back and just recheck that to absolutely.
Yeah, and I watched him back to back, so even then I was like, didn't I just see this guy? I'm like, well, it could be somebody different, but I'm like, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. But yeah, I just kind of like the way that, again, they brought out the whole thing, how he uses like his victim's blood and then like makes it in a way that makes it super hard to even remove it from where it's at too.
Right.
So I just love the way they set up Muse in this as well. But one of the things I really did love about this episode was it's also a callback to Wilson Fisk's first real MCU appearance in Hawkeye too, was the appearance of Jack Duquesne in this from the Hawkeye series, which I love that character. I remember when we were watching that show and I had no idea I was going to end up loving the character the way I did, because I just felt like we were going to end up hating him at one point.
Yeah, he was just going to be a throwaway guy.
Ends up helping out Kate a lot, so I was like, okay, awesome. And then, but before we actually even see, Jack's face, we actually get to see cell phone footage of him as the swordsman, fending off some people on like a basketball court or something like that. So we know he's actually been doing some vigilante work in this off time since Hawkeye, which I think is awesome. Just another, I imagine another vigilante that hopefully Matt will maybe represent at some point down the line, maybe. So that would be really cool. But the interaction between him and Fisk, I think, is really great too, because it also points out, that Jack still has some kind of like elite status in New York too, and like he's not really willing to, or he's not necessarily one of those guys who will back down from like a one-on-one with Fisk too. So that's really good, because he knows that Fisk has to kiss his ass in some sort of way as the mayor. So I love like just that one little interaction. between those two characters, and I really hope we get to see more of him later on in the season, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm really curious if he's working with some from the LARPing group too from the Hawkeye series, because it looked like
Yeah.
at the end of the Hawkeye series we had them kind of working together. So I'm wondering if like they made him the costume, like
Yeah.
he's working with some of them and
And some of them
training
like first
them.
responders too, so it's like
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, makes sense.
It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, you want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick off big takeaways for episode 6?
Okay, so my big takeaway from this episode has to be my favorite scene from the entire episode, which is just this amazing kind of back and forth kind of setup structure. But it starts off with the subway fight with Muse and Daredevil, and the way that's set up with like Muse knowing something's coming, and then when he looks down, you see the light, but then like you see him blurry coming in. And then he uses the baton to set up the Superman punch, and it's like, oh, that was so fucking cool. Like that's like your first real shot of seeing Matt back in the suit in action ever since like the whole ordeal with Bullseye and Foggy and stuff like that. So like this is like our first real Daredevil fight of the series since that point, and it does not disappoint. Once again, the fight choreography in these shows just like continues to be top notch. Like just the little stuff between like Muse starting to go after is it Ava or whatever? I can't remember the girl's name, the Ayala girl.
Right.
But like the way he would try to go like finish the job with her, and then the way Matt would intercept that, and then he would try to leave, and Matt would use his baton to stop him from doing that. It's just like, dang, really cool. But at the same time, we get this like kind of intercutted with Fisk kind of just throwing an axe at Adam, being like, all right, come on, let's do it. And then just proceeding to pummel the absolute shit out of him, like in the most brutal way, which again, we get the great mine line during that too, which is just like so good. And then you think that like he's gonna actually like kill the guy, but then he's just like, oh no, I'm just gonna, leave you like with a little sliver of life left, and I'm gonna throw you back in there to let that life kind of go back up a little bit. So the way it's just cut back and forth between that. There's one particular shot where I think Matt sets up a headbutt, but it finishes with Fisk headbutting him too. It's just like, man, the way they just like kind of set it up to where you can just make that such a seamless cut is just like amazing. But yeah, I just had my jaw on the floor the entire time with the tension between the Muse and Daredevil fight, and then the absolute shock of seeing Fisk just beat the absolute shit out of somebody, which is amazing. Even the one shot of like, Daredevil slams Muse to the ground, but as he slams him to the ground, Fisk throws him up into the ceiling, and you're just like, good Lord, dude, like this is just insane. But yeah, dude, like they just continue to like give us these amazing moments where Matt and Wilson like mirror each other so much, and they're on such different but similar paths at the same time too. But it's like, man, the way these guys are intertwined is just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I think that span fight scene / Fisk scene like being intercut with each other, I thought that was an incredible part of the episode and everything like that. One note before all of that, I thought the funniest part in the seconds before that is Matt's decision to put on the suit.
Hello? 911.
Fuck it.
Oh yeah,
He's calling 911 to report it, and he just goes, "Fuck it."
fuck it.
It's just like, all
Yeah.
right, fuck it.
Fuck it.
I want that to be his new catchphrase. Just like, fuck it.
Oh yeah, I love how it's already being used on TikTok and everything too.
Yeah.
It's like, fuck it.
Oh, that was perfect. I love that is what he does. Literally the first time he gets back before he gets back into the suit is just fuck it.
It's like, why do I even fight this anymore? Let's just do this. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, it was just perfect like that.
Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about for takeaways is very interesting, and it just got me starting to kind of think about this, is the conversation between Matt and Heather, talking about kind of her new book. And her new book is actually going to be on vigilantes and stuff like that. And we don't really get an insight on how she exactly feels about vigilantes so much. I don't know if she's going to try to be more like non-biased when she's writing it type of thing, and more talk about the psychology of vigilantism and stuff like that, instead of going vigilantes are great or vigilantes are not good, like type of thing.
Yeah, we kind of explored that too in the conversation. Like, I think she does kind of propose like the question that she might be trying. I think she's just trying to explore the debate by the sound of how she proposed it.
Right.
Too. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
What-
it's definitely the fact that it's coming up and in the whole connection makes it very interesting. Just in case, yeah.
Right. But so not only that, do we get the conversation in that, and that's before Matt finally actually puts the suit back on and everything.
Mhm.
But she starts asking Matt, like, you want to introduce me to Punisher, to Frank, and not only that,
big ass right away. Jeez.
yeah. He kind of chuckles that off, but then she goes, "Oh, what about Daredevil?" Like, and I'm like, does Heather know like a little bit more about Matt than Matt thinks she knows about him? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just it felt like a way more loaded question. Like Matt laughs it off, obviously, and everything like that, and it's just you've represented Frank before type of thing, and maybe just so happened Daredevil too. Like, but it's just the line of questioning. It was very light conversation and everything, but the line of questioning, I'm like, what does Heather actually know?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that because there's also that point in season 3 where Bullseye was also posing as Daredevil too, and I can't remember. There's a point where him and Matt had intertwined during that part, so there's like this kind of public perception that like those two are separated in some form. So yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I just thought it's one
and
thing.
He is tied to a lot of notable vigilante cases too. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's true, and like I said, that's why it made more sense that she went right to Frank Castle, because he had the very public trial where Matt was representing Frank Castle and stuff like that. But then for her to go to Daredevil instead of just a number of other names, I guess she could have pulled out for
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. She could have, I mean, obviously, I guess it's popular news that the White Tiger was murdered, but like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, even she could have went down, like, tell me about, Hector, tell me about him as the White Tiger. Like, you know what I mean? She literally went from, Punisher right to Daredevil. And so I was like, oh, what does she know? And so now I'm just like, anytime we're going to get an interaction with those two again, I want to see if like there's things that we can pick up. Like, what if she already knows? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm very curious now moving forward on what Heather knows and just. The other thing is, like, I mean, I know we've gotten some scenes of her and Fisk and Vanessa in therapy and stuff like that, but we really don't know 100% what they exactly, talk about other than the few scenes that we've got.
Right.
We know Fisk knows Matt's Daredevil. You know what I mean? Does Vanessa know Matt's Daredevil?
Probably. I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm assuming she knows. So, like, what if that something got insinuated during that type of thing, like the identity of Daredevil? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's very interesting. And I want to follow any interactions that Heather has moving forward. Just a little, I will look at them a little bit more closely, just because I'm curious at what she knows. I'm wondering, because I'm looking for like twists and, just anything that could be happening, that we're really not paying attention to on surface level type of thing. And so that conversation, that interaction between Heather and Matt just has like my radar up now of like, okay, what's Heather's role in the series? Yeah. What's Heather's role in this series type of thing? So I don't think she's just like this doesn't matter background character. So I'm interested. I don't have any theories. I'm just interested moving forward. Person of interest moving forward.
It does make me interested in just like how much notoriety Daredevil has within the public eye, because there's been a couple times where like during like the BB kind of like storyline thing where they interview people on the street, they're like you mentioned that like I think one person mentions Daredevil like by name at one point and him not even being around for a while, right? And then of course when he saves the Ayala girl. When she wakes up, she says she sees him and says Daredevil. Like, so she knows what Daredevil looks like apparently enough to like know that's Daredevil by face. So
you gotta imagine also Hector absolutely knows of Daredevil. Daredevil probably inspired Hector to really,
Yeah.
doing that, because he even said it to Matt in saying, Daredevil's not around anymore. Somebody had to start.
Right.
doing
That's another example too. Yeah.
Right.
So Hector obviously knew about Daredevil to an extent, but like, yeah, I'm just wondering how much of like notoriety they have within the public eye, where like it's a common thing with like people have seen him around, kind of like Spider-Man too. Like if you saw Spider-Man swinging around, you'd be like, that's Spider-Man.
Right.
So if I wonder if they've just seen him swinging around and stuff at some point, or they've been saved by him. So I think that brings. I think it makes you think of that when you were asking, like when Heather was asking Matt about Daredevil too. So like, did she already know about Daredevil before she even met him?
Right.
So yeah, I think it poses an interesting question as far as like how much notoriety all these heroes have. Do people know about Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, those guys too? Like, it makes me wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to think about, and I mean, if a lot of the rumors and leaks are end up being true, we have the beginning stages of the anti-vigilante task force being started.
Yeah.
But it looks like season 2 is going to concentrate a lot more on that type of thing, because some of the set photos, while because they're currently filming season 2 right now.
Yeah.
A lot of the set photos seem to have a lot to do with, people having, anti-vigilante like gear on and stuff like that. So we may, get more and more of the street level heroes and stuff like that having to interact and having to do a bunch of stuff because they're being basically hunted in season 2 type of thing. So there's a lot that could unfold as we're learning more, throughout this season. But obviously, as they're filming season 2, we're starting to get kind of a little bit of a image of what season 2 is going to be about and stuff like that moving forward. But get you some predictions.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna give up predictions, and it's a question we've already started asking, but now that we've kind of officially had more time on screen with this character, I want to know, if we have any updated guesses, if we have any updated things. So, Muse's identity. Who are we thinking here? I can kick it off if we want, but like I'm still interested. I don't know if I'm all in, like all the eggs are in this basket, but the body build and everything. I'm starting to think that Daniel is Muse theory is starting to like make a little bit more sense, like type of thing. Because just based on like body type and stuff like that. And I know the other character that was in the bookshop that asked Heather, to sign the book and everything. I know we've only had literally one scene with that character, but he just didn't look the same body type of Muse that we got in this past episode when he was fighting Daredevil. Now that could be, explained away, like maybe he puts on a bunch of armor and bigger clothes and stuff like that. That's always possible. Or maybe there's some mystical thing that puts on a talisman or something like that and grows muscles. I don't know. Obviously we're gonna know throughout the season, but I'm just saying, as of right now, the theory of Daniel being Muse is starting to make a little bit more sense. What about you? Any guesses? Any updated thoughts?
I think it's Bookstore Kid.
You think still okay? You still
I think it's Bookstore Kid. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty set on that one, especially because he seems like a mentally disturbed guy who needs some help.
I'm just saying,
yeah.
Like I'm wondering if that's a red herring, because obviously, like that's exactly who it points to. Like, so I'm wondering if like they're going, okay, we're gonna make this seem like super obvious, and he's not gonna either A, be anyone whatsoever, or B, he's just gonna be someone down the line. But Muse, that's just a throw off Muse identity type of thing. And it could not, it might not, we might both be wrong. Might not be bookstore guy, and it might not be Daniel. It might just be somebody else type of thing.
Yeah, maybe.
So, but I'm very interested.
Pretty good about it being bookstore guy.
Well, a few videos from now we'll know.
Yeah, true. We only got 3 episodes.
I know. I'm hoping we find out the identity before the end of the season, or by the end of the season.
Oh yeah, I think he'll be subdued by then. I don't think he'll die. I think he'll be subdued.
I mean, he got subdued, and then you looked over and he was gone like a fucking horror movie.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, subdued, like, he'll actually be like properly arrested.
Right.
I think. Yeah.
Either that or Fisk will do the mine scene on him again.
That could happen. Yeah.
He just throws him up and down. All right.
They're pretty good.
But what about you? Any predictions moving forward for the rest of the season?
Yeah. So again, we were talking about Kamala earlier, of course, with Yusukan being in the 5th episode too. But there's quite a few mentions of Kamala, and even
Mhm.
the invitation to come have dinner with the Khans over in is it Jersey City? Is that right? What
Yep.
you said, Jersey City, right? So I love that even Matt, like he's super open. He goes, yeah, I would love to go. Any excuse to go over to Jersey City too. So I love that, but it also just kind of opens the idea or the possibility of Matt just representing like the Khan family if they ever need it,
Yeah.
especially people like Kamala. But or also her and her friends in California. Like we obviously know that she was the last one to go recruit Kate Bishop to go start a little team over there. We know that Cassie Lang is also over there too, a stature. So and that could be our first little tease of of that West Coast Avengers, or the A Force too, whatever you want to call it, Young Avengers. It could be literally any one of those of 3 groups too, in my opinion. But Matt could also join that team, not even just represent them. He could also be a member of that team in some form or another. But just representing people on the West Coast too, because we know he practices law from the She-Hulk show too, as well too. He was practicing law when we first see him interacting with Jennifer. So yeah, I just think it's really cool that we kind of established like this possibility of Matt maybe going over to the West Coast at some point too, because there is a point in Matt's comic book life where he lives out in San Francisco for a little while. I think it's the Mark Waid run, which is one of my personal favorite runs of the comic book. So yeah, I just think it's really cool that we get that possibility. Like it opens up Matt's world of clientele in the MCU world too. He kind of goes from doing like the small man Klein stuff in the next Netflix world. And then in this show, he's doing like the street level vigilante stuff in New York, but then you can start moving on to like the bigger hero picture stuff of like Marvel heroes that have like superpowers and all that, and getting into that kind of like law stuff too. So it's kind of cool to see that his evolution, one as Daredevil, but also as a lawyer in the MCU as well.
Yeah, I mean they're looking for more clientele too, because we're talking about them needing to generate more money in episode 5, and now they can't get a loan because they don't have big enough like assets, I guess, right now. So
yeah, absolutely. So these bigger name clientele is definitely going to help push the forward of the business, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only, do we have Kamala and Cassie Lang, but we've got Scott Lang. So it'd be really interesting to see if we got Matt and Scott interacting.
Shang-Chi there.
Shang-Chi's over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think the White Vision's probably going to be end up over there at some point too. So it'd be kind of funny to see Matt representing an android as well. Or just see him interacting with Vision too.
Like, I mean, we got Vision Quest to look forward to at some point.
Man, you can find any reason to bring some of these characters that you wouldn't expect to be in these shows, like Yusuf Khan. Like I didn't really think of Yusuf Khan to being in this show, but here he is, and that's a great interaction between the characters. So yeah, it's like there's so many things that are available in the sandbox to play with.
What's funny is, and this is having Kamala's dad kind of meet Matt in a Daredevil episode is so tonally different, because all of Miss Marvel is kind of, it has action, but it seems more of like a lighthearted kind of. And same thing with like the Marvels and stuff like that. So anytime we've seen him already, it's kind of been, action and stuff happening and superhero stuff and everything like that, but kind of more of lighthearted, light stuff like that. And then you take Daredevil, which is TVMA and people's bones being broken and all this stuff. He's like the light spot of the interaction.
It's cool, but also in the comics too, like he does have his dark comics, but he has like his light vibe comics as well that have some pretty cool storytelling. But like the Mark Waid run that I was talking about, where he's in San Francisco and stuff like that. But that's where you get like the great panel of him that says like, "I'm not Daredevil," and he's super like charming and stuff like that. Like it's more of an emphasis on like the charming Matt Murdock side, who's also Daredevil at the same time too. And I think this episode kind of like shows that how he can balance in both worlds extremely well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I cannot wait to, get more of this season and season 2 and any interactions moving forward. I mean, I love when kind of these worlds collide in different MCU properties and characters and stuff like that. It's always interesting. So I can't wait to see more of that. And, it's just nice having kind of Daredevil and these other street levels now kind of in the MCU. So now we do have the ability to have them kind of cross over and stuff. We had them, on Netflix. We said this very early on. They weren't really able to refer to things exactly by name and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
Subtle hints and stuff.
Yeah. It's cool that now we can do that and we can have these small interactions with other characters and other MCU properties and all this stuff. So
100%.
More to look forward to moving forward. But as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episodes 5 and 6 of Daredevil Born Again series? And, I'm going to ask again. And I'm going to ask probably every single episode until we get his identity. Who do you think Muse is? As of right now, there are no wrong answers. Unless you say something completely off the cuff, like,
Cherry.
Yeah,
Cherry.
He's been Winter Soldiered again.
Damn it. Artistic Winter Soldier.
But anyway, and as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Popping Off presents That Recap Show.